All right, hello everyone. My name is Christian, and today I'm going to be going over some positives, some negatives about Kansas State University in Salina. I'm a freshman here. I'm just wrapping up my first year here, so I think be nice for some of the upcoming students that might be coming here in the upcoming fall to give a little bit of insight to our school. I know there's not that much. Our school doesn't have really big of an online presence, so I thought I'd give a little bit, give a little bit of background. So I'm originally from Virginia, and I wanted to be a pilot. So honestly, I searched up like the top flight schools in America, and one of the websites at Kansas State ranked as I think number two, number three. I think it was in terms of value in education, so that's one of the reasons why I applied. I also applied to Embry-Riddle, Ohio State University, Bowling Green. I applied to a lot of schools, but at the end of the day, I think my top three choices ended up being Ohio State, Embry-Riddle, and Kansas State. And I mean, obviously, I ended up at Kansas State, but why did I end up at Kansas State? So one of the biggest factors for me was definitely the price. I think it's a good value for the quality education that we're getting here. I mean, at least for the professional pilot program, you get your private pilot certificate, instrument rating, Com one, or you get your commercial, and then a CFI or multi engine, depending on which one you choose. And I think it ended up. I think it's around like $300,000, which is still a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but compared to other schools like Imperial and Ohio State, I think it's very good value because a little bit of advice that I was given when I was choosing a flight school is that the schools are what you make it, right? You're gonna get the same ratings everywhere. Where everyone's held to the same ACS standards when it's time for a check ride. So yeah, the name on the degree when you graduate is definitely important, but everyone's gonna be a pilot. We are gonna have the same ratings, so that's at least what I'll say. But for the most part, like I said, affordability was one of the biggest factors in fleet size. I think we have about 40 plus planes, and so I think that was really good, especially because they don't let that many people into the professional pilot program. So if you get accepted, you're going to be flying within like your first year. Especially now, they've been trying to step up, giving freshmen flight blocks for private or instrument if you already have your private. So I think that's really good. So let's start with some positives here. I'll try and alternate, give one positive and one negative, just so it's not all positive and all negative at the same time. So the first point I want to talk about is the tight knit community that we have here. For the most part, this is the aerospace and technology campus. So this is where most of your, I want to say mostly pilots and maintenance people are going to be here. Those are like the majority of the people here. Some people are doing, unmanned aircraft systems, UAS. Some people work with drones. Some people are engineers. Like there's other major besides just being a pilot and then being a mechanic. But I talked about the tight knit community because it's really easy to find people that are in your major and you can study with them. Especially in the pilot program, we have a study hall. This semester it was every Tuesday, Wednesday. I think it was the same in the fall. I'm not quite too sure. But there's a study hall. That's a good way to make friends. Meet maybe your CFI in the future when you get a flight lab. You'll be working you spend a lot of time with them, working with them, and become a pilot's not easy. Become a mechanic's not easy. So having people to study with and they can help you, especially people who are more experienced than you, I think that's really helpful. So yeah, the tight knit community is really nice. And then I guess we'll go to one negative. I think if there's one negative I'd have to say is definitely the cafeteria and the school store hours. I will get into the food a little bit later, but the hours here are not really that good. So for the cafeteria, it's only open from. I mean, I don't remember the hours exactly, but all I remember is that dinner ends during the week, Monday through Friday, ends at 7:30, and at least for me, that's really early. And so after 7:30, there's no more food on campus. Like there's technically a vending machine that serves food, but it's kind of like pretzels and I think White Castle sliders, and not it's not real food. And I'll just say it's not real food. And then for the bookstore closes at like 2 p.m. I think they're open from like 8 to 2, and then sometimes they'll close an hour for lunch, and then they'll sometimes close before 2. Like I went there at like 1:50 one time, and they were closed, and I was just like, okay, I mean, what the heck, man? You guys aren't open that much, and then especially when I first got here, the book availability was not very good. Now that was kind of on me for not ordering my books ahead of time, but at the same time, if it's a school bookstore, you should have, some of the books. So I was trying to get an intro to aviation book, which is like an aviation history book, and they just didn't have it. They didn't have it for like 2 3 weeks when I needed it, day one for the course. So that was kind of unfortunate. So that's definitely one. That's a negative that I would say. Going back to the positives, I'd say we have a really friendly staff here. The professors, down to the cleaning staff, they work really hard to make sure that this campus runs as smoothly as possible and that we have, the best experience. Like I said, we're paying to be here, so we're spending money to be here. So you want to get the best, best bang for your buck. So the professors, they're really nice. I've liked most of my professors that I've had here. They're all really nice, willing to work with you. Um, that's really about it for the most part. I don't really have too much to say about them because most of the time you're gonna be doing a lot of self studying. But outside of the lectures, they try to make the classes engaging. Like I've enjoyed my English classes here so far. I've enjoyed some of my other classes like the honors, because I'm in the honors program. That was really nice. Um, I'm trying to think. On my aviation classes, I like those the best. I enjoy those the most. Like I'm taking meteorology currently this semester, so I've enjoyed that class a lot. We actually played Jeopardy for our last class, and it was kind of a little bittersweet because it was our professor. We were his last ever class. Like this was his last class because he's retiring. Not R.I.P. But enjoy retirement, King Von. But yeah, so it's really nice. I enjoy those classes, and the staff here. They really make you feel welcome, especially for people who aren't from here. What I've noticed being from the East Coast is that people in the Midwest are generally they have better hospitality. So that's really nice, and you can definitely hear that in the staff and stuff. They're really kind. They like to get to know you a little bit. Even though if you're not in their class for a long time, whether it's 8 weeks or the full semester, you only meet once a week or 3 times a week. They try and their best to get to know you in the amount of time as possible. So I think that's really nice. Okay, another negative. I would have to say the food quality. I mean, it's kind of annoying, and not even food quality. I'd also say the quantity. So for the most part, on the grill, it's the same food at the same time every week. So I'll give an example. So every Wednesday they have a quesadilla. It'll be a cheese quesadilla or it'll be a chicken quesadilla. I think I've seen a chicken quesadilla maybe twice, and like they maybe make it twice a semester or twice a year. But either way, it's kind of weird. And I like quesadillas. I mean, the one that we have here, they're all right. I mean, they just sprinkle some cheese in a tortilla shell and call it a day. So it's not like it's hard work, but they only make that on Wednesday, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. And then it's just the same thing every day of the week, at least for the grill. And then they always have pizza, and that's fine, but the quality can vary a lot. And then depending if it's been sitting there for a while, they're not gonna put out a new pie until everyone finishes that one, and it's kind of annoying. And then at least on the grill side, they do have some nice food. They have like I said, they have chicken tenders every Friday. There's always a pasta option, and then they have steak like maybe once or twice a semester. The steak is not that good in my opinion. I haven't tried all the food, so I can't speak for like every single thing. But from what I've had for the most part, like the quantity and the quality, I don't think it's not as nice as Manhattan because I've seen Manhattan and their union where their cafeteria is really nice. Unfortunately, ours is really small because we're only like I don't want to say a satellite campus, but we're not the main campus. We're a branch of Kansas State University, so we have our own resources, but not as much. You know what I'm saying? So we have only like there's really only two places you can get food from, and that's either the grill or like the hotline. And then there's obviously a salad bar, and they have some dessert like cookies, but usually they're stale, and that's really about it. It kind of sucks. They are planning on getting a new place for students to eat. Hopefully, that's what at least I was told when I was touring here virtually. They said they're gonna get a new spot for students to eat in 2027. So hopefully, have some better food options, and yeah, to hope for the best. But let's go a little bit something more positive here. The airport location. So, or where I guess yeah, airport location. So Kansas State University is actually we basically live on the airport. Not obviously on the runway. That's not possible. But we live right next to the airport. You can actually walk to the Stevens Flight Center, which is where you would go and do your flight or your ground lesson. And it's about basically a 8 to 10 minute walk anywhere from campus, which I think is really nice. So you don't actually need a car coming out here if you're just going to class and going back to your dorm and doing this that's on campus that we already have. Like you don't need a car for that, which is really nice. Compared to other schools like Ohio State, where the airport is like 10-15 minute drive. Bowling Green's You can walk there, but it's not really walkable. I would say like that's probably another 10-minute drive, and obviously Embry-Riddle has their like they're on the airport, so that's also another school that's similar in regards to airport location. And so that's really nice. Salina is a towered airport, or it's part time towered. So for the most part, you will be talking to controllers. So I think that's really good experience. Because there are sometimes, like I know some people who are in Part 61, they might fly out of a Class G airspace, so they might not be too comfortable talking on radio communication. So I think that's really nice. And yeah, you might also see some military carriers. Like that the other day, we saw some F-16s taking off. We saw a really big, I don't really know what it was called, but it was a really big military jet. Also some helicopters, and then we're also right next to the maintenance vision, or the maintenance hangar for One Vision, and you'll see some Delta planes coming. And it's really nice to see. I had recorded a draft of this where I had a jet that was practicing pattern work, and obviously I'm not. There's no window next to me now, so I won't be able to see any planes. But that is really cool. I think that's one benefit of being on the airports. You get to look at planes. For the av geeks out there, I'm sure it's really nice to see these type of planes come in. So that's nice. All right, back to another negative that we have here. I like going back to what I said earlier. We're not connected to the main campus at all, so I don't read. I didn't read when I applied here. I thought I was going to Manhattan, and actually, so did a lot of other people. They thought they were going to Manhattan when they applied to Kansas State, but no, we are in Salina, which is about a 70-minute drive. I think we're 70 miles, like an hour away from Manhattan. We're an hour west, like southwest of Manhattan. So yeah, we're nowhere near, the main campus. So if you want to go to like football games or sporting events, most of the events for our like main school, you're probably not gonna be able to go to unless you have a car or you drive with some friends, which I do not. I'm kind of not really fond of because I don't have a car myself. So if I ever wanted to go to like a football game, I would either have to pay like $80 to get an Uber there, or ride with some friends. And since none of my friends really care about football, I can't really go to the games. So that kind of sucks. And I'm not saying it's the end of the world. Like if you don't really care about going to the football games or all the other stuff that the main campus has to offer, then you'll be fine. This probably wouldn't be negative. But for me personally, I like football. I like sports. I want to go support, my school, but I kind of can't. It's not affordable to, be Ubering there every weekend. It's like $160 both ways, or not both ways, or $160 in total, and that's not really feasible at all, especially for college students. And Salina, they don't, or at least the school doesn't provide us any way to get to those games or the main campus at all. And it's kind of weird because they're like, oh, you can take classes on the main campus, but it's like you would have to drive an hour there and then drive back, and you have to live on Salina if you're a freshman in the pilot program. Or I don't think you have to live on campus, but they're just saying like if you live in Salina and you want to take a class that's in Manhattan, you have to drive there. I'm just like I don't know why you want to drive an hour just for one class. Like I don't think that makes much sense. But I mean that's an option. Some people want to do that. I know one person who lives in Manhattan and they commute out here for their classes, and I feel like even then that's kind of crazy. But that's just how the school is. So that's something I don't really agree with. But you're not required to take any classes in Manhattan. Like all the classes that you need to graduate, you can take here or online. So that's good. I think it would be kind of crazy if they required us to go to Manhattan to graduate, but either way, that's crazy. Going back to another positive, I would say the professional pilot program. So far, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed every aspect of it. I will say the one thing I have enjoyed is trying to wait for a flight lab. At least this year for the 2025-2026 academic year, the school wasn't really transparent about who and when. Wow, when you get a flight lab and who's getting a flight lab, there wasn't really there is a list, but they don't give students that list. You can ask for it, but it's like most of the time they'll be like, we can't really tell you, or we don't know, especially from the counselors. So they kind of redid the whole system for the upcoming for summer and the upcoming academic year. So that's be good for any incoming students. But before they said it was basically based on enrollment. So whenever you paid your deposit into the school and you signed your housing card to pick out your classes, that's who they determined like in that order is who got a flight lab. I know it's kind of confusing. That's kind of how we interpreted it, but now they changed it, so it's still pretty much the same thing. but they'll just tell you a little bit beforehand. Like they'll give you more of a heads up before when you get a flight lab, because like I said, I just got a flight lab for summertime because I'm staying over the summer because that's an option and they actually highly recommend that you stay over the summer to fly. So I I would say I'm not as homesick as like some other people, and everyone's situation is different. So I would want to stay and fly over the summer, just so I could get try and get to my rings as fast as possible, because I don't want to have to spend a lot of money on like retraining fees, and then like I want to get back into flying because I flew before I came to K State, then I stopped, and I want to get back into it. So I don't mind staying over the summer, but some people want to go home, and that's perfectly fine. But it probably will take you a little bit longer to get through your range, especially if you start flying in like the fall or the summer or the spring and then you stop. So that's something I would note of. But like I was saying, yeah, so they redid the whole entire like flight scheduling thing. Now it's done through the counselors, and the counselors have a bit more of a say. Like they send out a survey sheet with all the times. They're like, "Oh, what is your preferred time to fly?" And to be honest, they didn't really. I don't think they really followed that. At least for me, they didn't, because I wanted a flight block in the morning. And at first, they gave me one at like 5 in the morning, and I was like, "There's no way," because I work. And I don't get off of work till like 11 sometimes, and I wouldn't be getting home. I wouldn't be like getting in bed till like 12:31, and I'm like, okay, if I have a flight at like, if I have to be at the airport at 5, I have to be up at like 4, and that's only 3 hours of sleep, and I wouldn't be meeting the I'm safe checklist. So I'm just like, okay, that doesn't really make much sense. So I was like, hey, can I get a later flight block? And for summer, they were like, okay, that's fine. We'll give you. I emailed my cousin, I was like, hey, this wouldn't work, and they gave me a new one, and I was like, all right, that's fine. But now for fall, they're like, we'll switch your flight block if it like interferes with your regular class schedules. They're like, we don't like. I'm not saying they don't care, but they were like, we're not gonna, just because you have work isn't a reason why you should switch your flight block. Just because you have to commute isn't a reason why you switch your flight block. And I'm like, well, we have other stuff in our lives besides just school. I know school is like our main focus, but it's like some people have to work their way through college. So I don't think it's really fair to be like, your work should, like, we're not gonna try and move it around for your work. And then they also, like I said, they put out that schedule, and then you can put in a note like saying, hey, I have work at this time, so can I work in the like, can I get a flight block in the morning so I can work in the evening? And then I picked my classes around having having a flight time on Tuesday, Thursday, which is what I got a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday block, but it's at 3 in the afternoon. And it's like, okay, well, I work in the afternoon, so now I have to take those days off, which is less money. And when I need that money to pay for school, it's kind of you gotta make choices, difficult choices. So I definitely would say I don't like that. Obviously you can't get everybody the flight block they want. We only have so many planes, but I feel like there should be a better way of like picking, or just not putting out a survey at all if you're just not gonna even try and follow it. At least that's what I would say. But overall, the program is nice. The teachers, the instructors are nice. That's mostly, the flight scheduling, contrary to belief, that's not really like on them. That's mostly like your counselors and like one other person in the flight department. But besides that, the rest of them who are like not in charge of scheduling the flight box, they're really nice. They're really sweet. They really want everyone to succeed, and they'll stay with you, a little bit extra if you need that help, which is really nice. Especially for me when I was going over my nav log, like they helped me through like every single step of the way, and then it got me ready to pass my oral for ground school. So that was really nice. Another negative, I would say, talking about the town, as I said, we're not Manhattan. So we're not as big as Manhattan. We're in Salina. Salina is a smaller city in the, we're low key in like the middle of Kansas. It looks like the middle of Kansas to me. It looks like we're in the middle of America, to be honest. But we're a little bit west. We're west of Manhattan, north of Wichita. So like I said, we're kind of in that middle area here. And it's a really small town. Like I said, not that much to do here. Or what I was saying, there's not much to do here, to be honest. If you don't have a car, we do have a public transportation system, but it's not the best. It's like a very tiny bus. Like, it's not like a big bus, like a city bus. If anyone from the city, like, think like a metro bus, it's not that. It's not like a New York City bus, it's not that. And not even like like a Greyhound. It's nothing like your standard big to mid-sized city bus. It's a very small bus. It's like think of like an accessible bus that you would see like old people on. It's that type of size bus. It's not that really big. There's only 12 seats on it. It's $1, which is nice, but you get what you pay for. So, sometimes the driver will be smoking, while at the bus stop, and it's like if you don't like that, you gotta, toughen up. And the bus only runs like once every hour. So if you miss the bus, you're kind of out of luck. And then the bus stops running at like 9 o'clock every day. And it's like people get off of work after 9, so they gotta Uber home, walk home, bike home, one of those ways. And then they're closed on Sundays. They don't even run on Sundays. So it's like if you gotta get somewhere on a Sunday, you're Ubering or you're walking. And the city isn't the most walkable either. Like if I wanted to walk just to the main road, 9th Street, I would be having to walk on the side of the road, which would not really deem this as a walkable city. So that sucks. I mean, they are trying to make a sidewalk, but it's not to our school since we're so far away from like 9th Street. We're like, I want to say we're a mile away, but like it's enough away where they're not going to try and build a sidewalk because you probably shouldn't be trying to walk there anyways or walk on that road anyways. But yeah, we're not a really walkable city. We do have a water park, the Kenwood Cove, I think. I haven't been there because I've only been here through fall and spring, and I haven't went there. Maybe with the summer I'll try it. Hopefully it's nice. We do have like a big facility. I forgot what it's called, but like they have basketball courts and a course. Like it's really nice, but I think it requires a membership. I think we have a YMCA here too. I'm not really too sure, but in terms of like a mall, the Central Mall isn't even really a mall. There's like maybe 5 stores in there, and it just got destroyed by hail, and now more companies are pulling out of the mall. I think they just said, I just saw the other day, like 5 companies are gonna leave because of the hail damage, and I'm like, okay, wow. We also have the district, which is, I mean, it's all right. It's basically an arcade. It's okay. It's good for like maybe 1 or 2 trips, but after that, I mean, you've basically done everything that's there. I mean, they have go karting, they got mini bowling. It's basically like their idea is quality or not quality, quantity over quality. They have a lot of stuff, but none of it's really good. And then my preferred spot to go would be the alley. I think that's the best place in town to go if you're trying to look for a good time. They got bowling, which is all right. They got a mini arcade. It's smaller than the district, but I think the game qualities are better, and they have better prices in my opinion. So I'd rather go there. And they have some good deals too. Like I think I went with some friends for like $8 bowling on a Friday night during October, and we had a really great time. It was really fun. So that's another thing, and then walking down Old Town on Santa Fe Avenue, that's really nice. There's some nice stores over there. I mean, they're not really open that much, just because it's a small town and they probably don't have that. It's probably like a family owned store. They're probably only open like certain hours of the day and stuff like that. But for the most part, the city's kind of small, and if you don't have a car, it's not very accessible. And outside of like the 2 spots I gave you, there's really not much here to do. At least for college kids, I would say. If you want to do like party and stuff, you're probably have to go to Manhattan or join the frat that's on campus. I think it's like Alpha Eta Rho. And like if you don't join that, there's basically like no parties here unless you know someone at the other school, Kansas Wesleyan. But besides that, that's pretty much it. I think I'll just do one more pro. Our connections at the university, I wouldn't say it's a pro, but I would say it's a con. Like I think it's okay. I think we're okay for like what type, like the size of our school. We have some nice programs, for pilots. Once they finish their training, and even for the maintenance people. I think my friend just told me that SkyWest came here talking to mechanics, offering them spots in their program, and then we also have SkyWest also has a cadet program for us. Republic came in the other day and did a little presentation about their program, so that was really nice. We're also trying to get affiliated with United Aviate, so that's cool. I think we're on the Delta we're on some Delta Collegiate Pathway program that we just got onto. That was really cool. People they were really happy about that. And then I think we're also number 2 for Southwest's program. I think it's like their 226 program. So we're second on the list to get approved for that. And hopefully by the time I graduate and have all my ratings, I'll actually be able to, get involved in these cadet programs and, hopefully have a pathway to regional airline at the time that I graduate. So that's really nice. Yeah, I also have Envoy, and we have a lot of career fairs. There's one every semester, so 2 in a year, and that's probably your best time to put your name out there. Now, for like freshman pods who have no experience, I wouldn't say don't go. I would say just go like to get a feel and see what it looks like. But you're most likely not gonna get any attention just because you don't have any ratings. I know like the minimum requirement for like some of these cadet programs. I think the lowest I've seen was Republic, and it was instrument rating. So when you get an instrument rating, that's when you can apply, and hopefully you would get in if that's what you want. But if you don't have at least an instrument rating, maybe some are private. I don't really know why, but if you have at least an instrument rating, you'll probably have a good chance at they'll probably take your information down and tell you to apply online and stuff like that. And hopefully you get in. I've heard some good things about their public program. Maybe that's what I would want to do after I get all my ratings and stuff. But personally, I'd want to go to United AV. So hoping that we can get affiliated with United before I graduate. And then the last negative that I'll go over is honestly there's not that much stuff to do here on campus. I have another video talking about the SLC and what type of stuff we can do in the SLC if you want to know more about that. But besides that, I mean, we really only have the SLC on campus for like in terms of stuff to do, which is basically just give you a little bit right. It's just a gym. There's some workout equipment. We have an 11th of a mile track. We have a full size basketball court, or I think we have two full size basketball courts. And like I said, you gotta do what you can with what you have. So the school comes together. They host volleyball, the intramural sports sometime during the fall and spring. That's pretty cool. They have a ping pong table, which what I like. And then they have another court. I'm not really sure what it's for, but it's like a big room with. I think you use it for racquetball. I'm not really sure, but there's another room that sometimes they do yoga in and stuff like that. But yeah, and then there's also the Cessna Lounge, which has a Switch and a PlayStation 3 and foosball and like mini hoops. And then they also, what I do like is that they have clothes like in the back from like hand-me-down clothes that like if you need like a shirt or something, you can go there and grab it. That's pretty nice. But besides that, that's really about it on campus. They do host some activities. Like recently, since the year's ending, we're getting a lot more activities. And then Welcome Week is pretty nice. But outside of those times, there's not really going to be that many activities on campus that are going to be fun. Some that I remember is during Welcome Week when we did paintball. I think it was like the Saturday before classes started. And then later in the year, we had Capture the Mattress. That was pretty cool. So there are some events, but there's not like enough that we're going to entertain you, like every week or like every 2 weeks. But for the most part, you gotta remember why we're here. We're here to study. We're here to, get our ratings, get whatever we need, to succeed in a career in the future. So I'm not saying, like, oh, we need to have, some party every day. But, like, at least, something type. And then there's also some events. Like, I remember we also had a casino that I couldn't go to because I have work. So I kind of missed some of the, like, major events. Like, there are events. I don't go to them. But, like, when I'm looking at, like, a calendar, like, at a whole, I'm like, there's not really that many events that we can, do. And then sometimes they'll be off campus. And then, again, they don't give you a way to get to these events. So that's another thing. But, for the most part, this school is nice. If it was a year ago, do I think I would have been here? Probably not. I think I would have saw myself at another school. But now that time has passed and I've grown and matured, I'm like, this is the place where I want to be. And if I'm being honest, even when I first got here, I immediately wanted to transfer because the school is so small. There's not much to do here, and you have to give it time. Like, obviously, I wouldn't want to spend the rest of my life in Salina, but for the next 4, 5 years, however long it takes me to get through all my ratings, like, I could enjoy being here. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm like, I might say, I'm an introvert, and this school helped me make friends a little bit easier because we're all so, close and connected. We're all in the same major, so that's really nice. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful for some people that are thinking about coming to this school. And, if you guys ever see me on campus, feel free to say hi. If you guys have any questions, I'll be willing to help. I've had someone recognize me from my video on another channel, so that was really cool. And, I've been talking to him about, some of the stuff in the school and, stuff like that. It's really nice. This is a tight-knit community, and, the school's what you make it at the end of the day. So, the school's probably not going to be for everyone. Like, it wasn't for me at the beginning. But once you give it some time, you'll get used to it. But, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, I guess. If you guys have any questions, about the school, feel free to leave them in the comments. And, I'll try and answer them to the best that I can. And, yeah, hope you guys have a nice day.